The transport shuttle's doors hissed open, and Dr. Neil Harper stepped into a world that smelled like electricity and flowers mixed together. The Celestial Archive stretched out before him, a massive research station that housed scientists from 47 different species. Crystalline walkways connected organic-looking pods, and the entire structure hummed with an energy he couldn't quite identify. "Welcome, humans." A voice chimed like wind through glass bottles. Neil turned to see Rala, the station's lead researcher. She looked like someone had carved a statue from living diamond and given it the ability to move. Light bent around her faceted body in rainbow patterns. "Thank you for having us," Captain Iris Valdez said, stepping forward with the kind of confidence that came from 20 years in deep space. Behind her, the rest of the human delegation filed out, carrying their personal belongings and looking around with wide eyes. Rala gestured with an appendage that might have been an arm. "We have prepared quarters for your team. Tonight we feast in your honor. All species contribute dishes from their homeworlds. The feast hall could have held 1,000 people easily. Tables curved in spirals, accommodating beings of every imaginable shape. Some delegates sat, others floated, and a few were submerged in tanks of various liquids." Neil found himself seated between Rala and a nervous-looking creature named Bryn, who breathed methane through a portable atmosphere suit. "This is safe for human consumption," Rala said, indicating a plate of what looked like blue gelatin cubes. "Our nutritionists analyzed your biological requirements. Very unusual, I must say. Your species can process an extremely wide variety of compounds." Neil tried the cube. It tasted like nothing but had an interesting texture. "It's good, thank you. We actually brought some items from Earth too, if you'd like to try a cultural exchange." Bryn's translator made an interested chirping sound. "What foods do humans prefer?" "Well, we're pretty flexible," Neil said, pulling out a container from his bag. "We eat fresh foods, of course, but also preserved items. Dried, salted, fermented, aged. Depends on the culture and region." He opened the container. The smell hit the immediate area like a physical force. 3 nearby aliens immediately pushed away from the table. One made a sound like a squeaking door. Another's skin flushed a deep purple color that probably meant distress. "What is that?" Rala leaned back, her crystalline structure vibrating at a frequency that suggested alarm. "Kimchi," Neil said cheerfully. "Fermented vegetables. This batch is about 2 months old, so it's nice and developed. Want some? Fermented?" Bryn's translator made the word sound like a curse. "You mean decomposed? Controlled by bacteria?" "Exactly." Neil speared a piece with his fork and ate it. The satisfying crunch and sour spicy flavor made him smile. "Fermentation is one of the oldest food preservation methods on Earth. We also do it with milk to make cheese and yogurt, with grain to make bread and beer, with soybeans to make dozens of different products." Rala's entire body had gone pale, the rainbow refractions turning into sick-looking white light. "You intentionally culture bacterial colonies in your food? And then consume them?" "Sure. The bacteria break down complex compounds into simpler ones, often making the food more nutritious and easier to digest. Plus, it tastes great." Neil pulled out another container. "This is aged cheese. The bacteria and molds work on it for months, sometimes years." The blue-veined cheese's aroma joined the kimchi in the air. More aliens excused themselves from nearby tables. Iris, sitting a few seats down, caught Neil's eye and shook her head with an amused expression. She'd warned him to go easy on the introductions. "Molds?" A thin amphibious creature across the table stared at Neil with bulbous eyes. "You eat fungal infections?" "Not infections, exactly. Specific cultivated molds. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years." Neil took a bite of the cheese, enjoying the sharp, complex flavor. "Some of our most expensive and prized foods involve extensive aging and fermentation. We have fish that's been fermented for months, meat that's been aged until the outside develops a crust of beneficial bacteria, fruits preserved in alcohol." Bryn made a wheezing sound through his methane filters. "How are you alive? How has your species not poisoned itself into extinction?" "Robust digestive systems," Iris offered from down the table. "And really good livers. Human biology is designed to handle a lot of variety. We evolved as scavengers and opportunistic omnivores. If it didn't immediately kill us, our ancestors learned to eat it." Rala slowly extended a thin appendage toward the kimchi container, then quickly withdrew it. "On my world, food that smells like this would indicate dangerous decay. We would dispose of it in hazardous waste containers. Different evolutionary paths." Neil closed the containers, taking pity on his new colleagues. I didn't mean to cause distress. I just thought it would be interesting to share. Interesting, Rala repeated, her tone suggesting she had other words in mind. Dr. Harper, I must ask, what do humans consider inedible? Neil thought about it. Genuinely toxic things, I suppose. Although even then, we've learned to process a lot of foods that are poisonous in their raw state. Cassava root, certain beans, some nuts. We soak them, cook them, ferment them. There's this fruit called ackee that's deadly if you eat it at the wrong ripeness, but it's a delicacy in parts of Earth. The amphibious creature across the table made a gurgling sound of disbelief. You have foods that can kill you and you eat them anyway? Only if prepared wrong, Neil clarified. When done right, they're perfectly safe. There's actually a fish called fugu that contains a neurotoxin. Chefs train for years to learn how to prepare it properly. People pay a lot of money to eat it. Bryn's entire suit trembled. Your species deliberately eats neurotoxins. For pleasure. When you put it that way, it does sound a bit extreme, Iris admitted, though she was clearly trying not to laugh. Rala stood, her crystalline form catching the light from overhead fixtures. I believe I need to reassess our understanding of human biology. With your permission, I would like to conduct some additional medical scans. Your species is far more resilient than our initial reports indicated. Happy to help with research, Neil said. That's why we're here, after all. Cultural and scientific exchange. Indeed. Rala's voice had taken on a quality that suggested she was reevaluating everything she thought she knew. Though I confess, Dr. Harper, in all my years studying xenobiology, I have never encountered a species quite like humanity. You eat controlled decay, intentional fungal growth, and foods that require extensive training to avoid death. Neil grinned. Wait until you hear about our hot peppers. We bred plants to be as painful as possible to eat, then built entire cuisines around them. Bryn made a sound like escaping gas and excused himself from the table. As the feast continued with considerably more distance between humans and other species, Neil caught Iris giving him an exasperated look. He shrugged innocently. They were here for 6 months. Everyone would have to get used to each other eventually. Rala remained at the table, studying Neil with what might have been scientific fascination or horror, possibly both. Your species, she said slowly, is going to be very educational. Neil raised his glass of water in agreement, privately glad he'd left his hot sauce collection in his quarters. No need to traumatize everyone on the first day, though something told him that was inevitable anyway. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived, and Rala thought she was starting to understand them. Then the supply crisis hit, and she realized she understood nothing at all. Solar flares from the nearby neutron star had intensified without warning, creating dangerous radiation fields that no ship could safely navigate. The scheduled supply vessel, carrying food and essentials for all station residents, was stuck at the edge of the system, waiting. The flares would calm eventually, but Station Command estimated at least 12 days before safe passage. Every species went into immediate rationing mode. The Shimmer people like Rala could survive on minimal nutrition, absorbing ambient energy from the station's systems. Others weren't so fortunate. Bryn and his methane-breathing colleagues faced the most immediate danger, their specialized atmosphere requiring constant replenishment. Rala called an emergency meeting in the main conference hall. Representatives from each species gathered, the anxiety palpable in the air through a dozen different chemical and electromagnetic signatures. We have enough supplies for 8 days at half rations, she announced. We need to reduce all non-essential consumption immediately. Around the room, being shifted uncomfortably. Hunger was a universal concern apparently, regardless of biology. What about the humans? Someone asked. Rala couldn't see who through the crowd. She looked toward the human delegation. Iris stood calmly, hands clasped behind her back. Neil beside her looked positively relaxed, almost amused. We'll be fine, Iris said simply. We have some rations and we're very good at making do. That seemed optimistic, bordering on delusional. Rala thought, but she nodded and moved on to other matters. 2 days later, Rala found Neil in one of the lower levels of the station, an area most researchers avoided. The recycling and waste management systems hummed and gurgled down here, processing organic matter and atmospheric waste into component elements. Dr. Harper, what are you doing in the industrial sector? Neil looked up from a portable scanner he'd been pointing at a large vat of greenish liquid. His face brightened when he saw her. "Oh, hey, Rala. I'm checking out your protein reclamation system. This is really impressive engineering. That system processes biological waste into base compounds for disposal or recycling," Rala said slowly. "It's not meant for habitation areas." "Right, but look at this." Neil showed her his scanner readings. "This algae culture you're growing is part of the filtration process. It's completely edible." Rala's crystalline structure actually flickered, light refracting in a pattern that indicated severe confusion. "That is industrial waste, a byproduct of atmospheric processing. It's protein," Neil corrected cheerfully. "Really good protein, actually. Similar to spirulina back on Earth. We eat that in smoothies and supplements." "You cannot be serious." Neil was already pulling out a small collection container. "I'm absolutely serious. With your permission, I'd like to take a sample. If it tests safe, which I'm pretty sure it will, we can process it into something edible. It is waste." Rala pronounced each word carefully, as if Neil might not have understood. "One species' waste is another species' food source," Neil said, sealing his container. "That's basic ecology." Over the next day, Rala watched with mounting horror as the human team set up a small processing station in their quarters. They harvested the algae, dried it, ground it into powder, and mixed it with expired nutrition paste that the station's medical bay was about to discard. "That paste is 3 months past its recommended consumption date," the station's physician, Dr. Quill, protested. The amphibious Naran had come to investigate reports of humans engaging in dangerous behavior. "It's been sitting in storage because we were waiting for proper disposal authorization." Amy Torres, the human medical officer, barely looked up from her work. "The dates are recommendations, not hard limits, especially for sealed items kept in climate-controlled environments." "The paste is fine." Quill's throat sac inflated with agitation. "Fine? It could be contaminated with degraded compounds." "Could be," Amy agreed, "but probably isn't. We tested it. Still nutritionally viable, no dangerous bacterial growth, no toxins. Just a bit past the date some safety committee decided on." When Rala arrived at the human quarters that evening, drawn by an unsettling smell, she found the entire team sitting around a makeshift table, eating what looked like flat greenish cakes. "Want to try some?" Neil offered, holding out a plate. "We added some spices from our personal supplies. Leo says it tastes like a savory pancake." Leo Grant, the team's botanist, nodded enthusiastically while chewing. "A bit earthy, but not bad at all." "That is made from industrial waste and expired medical supplies," Rala said, her voice rising to a frequency that made nearby equipment vibrate. "That's not edible." Neil took another bite, completely unbothered by her distress. "Sure it is. We're eating it right now. You're going to poison yourselves." "Nah," Leo said, offering Rala a reassuring smile that did not in fact reassure her. "We've been eating this for 2 days now. Feel great. Actually, these algae have some interesting micronutrients that our regular rations were lacking." Rala immediately contacted Dr. Quill. Within an hour, all 4 humans were undergoing comprehensive medical scans. Despite their protests, the results made no sense. "They're thriving," Quill announced to Rala in private, his throat sac deflating in confused defeat. "Not just surviving, thriving. Their digestive systems are extracting nutrition from compounds that should pass through inert. Their gut flora is processing the algae more efficiently than our industrial filters do." "How is that possible?" Quill pulled up a biological scan on his display. "Humans have an incredibly diverse microbiome. Trillions of bacteria in their digestive tract, hundreds of species working in concert. Their stomach acid is highly concentrated, breaking down compounds that would sicken or kill most species. And their liver processes toxins at a rate that seems almost designed for eating questionable food. They evolved this way? Apparently. Dr. Torres explained that humans came from a world where food sources were unpredictable. Feast or famine cycles. They developed the ability to eat almost anything that wouldn't immediately kill them. Spoiled meat, toxic plants made safe through processing, insects, fungi, anything they could digest." Rala watched through the medical bay window as Neil laughed at something Iris said. Both of them looking perfectly healthy despite eating industrial waste for days. They're not even concerned about the supply crisis, are they? "Dr. Harper told me they've identified 7 other potential food sources on the station," Quill said quietly. "Materials we consider non-food or even hazardous." He seemed excited about the challenge. The next day, Station Command reluctantly approved human access to the protein reclamation system under strict supervision. The humans set up a proper processing station, creating enough algae cakes to supplement their rations indefinitely. Word spread quickly through the station. Researchers from various species found excuses to walk past the human quarters, staring at the team eating their recycled algae meals with apparent satisfaction. Bryn approached Rala in the main lab, his methane suit speakers carrying a tone of disbelief. They're eating filtered atmospheric waste. With spices, and they're happy about it. I know, Rala said. One of them offered me some. He said it was good. I know. They're insane. I know, Rala agreed. Then after a pause, or perhaps we're just soft. They come from a world that challenged them constantly, made them adapt or die. We've had the luxury of controlled food supplies, specific nutritional requirements, safety standards. Bryn's suit trembled slightly. That's not luxury. That's civilization. Maybe, Rala mused, watching Neil through the lab window as he walked past, carrying a container of his algae cakes and chatting animatedly with Leo about something. But when crisis comes, civilization doesn't keep you alive. Adaptability does. She made a note in her research log. Humans possess remarkable biological flexibility regarding nutrition, potential applications for survival scenarios worth investigating. She didn't know it yet, but that note would prove prophetic far sooner than she imagined. The supply ship finally arrived 11 days later, but by then, half the station had heard about the humans who turned waste into food and thrived while everyone else rationed. The story spread to other stations, other ships, other worlds, and in the galactic consciousness a new understanding began to form. Humans were not just another species joining the community. They were survivors of a type most civilizations had forgotten how to produce. It should have been comforting. Instead, it was terrifying. Emergency alarms rarely sounded on the Celestial Archive, so when they did, everyone paid attention. Rala abandoned her crystalline growth experiment and rushed to the command center, where she found Station Commander Hess, a bulky silicon-based being. Coordinating responses. Survey team on Verdant 9, Hess rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. Stranded 5 days ago when their transport suffered catastrophic failure. 4 researchers, supplies running critical. Rala accessed the distress signal data. Verdant 9 was a lush planet, recently cataloged, covered in dense vegetation and teeming with life. It was also flagged in the database with warning symbols that made her internal structure shudder. Toxicity levels? She asked, though she already knew. Extreme, Hess confirmed. Everything on that planet contains compounds lethal to 93% of known species. The survey team is sealed in their damaged shuttle, afraid to venture outside for more than minutes at a time. How long until rescue? 6 days minimum. We're assembling a specialized team, but the transport needs modification for atmospheric protection. The stranded team has supplies for maybe 3 more days, and that's if they ration aggressively. Rala ran calculations in her head. None of them looked good. They won't survive. No, Hess agreed heavily. They won't. What about an emergency drop? Get supplies to them faster? Anything we send would need the same protective modifications. Time is the enemy here. A voice cut through the tension. We could go. Rala turned to see Iris standing in the command center doorway, Neil and the rest of the human team behind her. Hess's massive form shifted toward them. Captain Valdez, I appreciate the offer, but Verdant 9 is categorized as a Class 9 biohazard world. Contact with the local environment would kill you in hours. Maybe, Neil said, stepping forward with a datapad. But I've been looking at the survey data. The toxic compounds listed here are mostly alkaloids, glycosides, and various acids. Those aren't actually that unusual. Rala felt her structure vibrate with concern. Dr. Harper, those concentrations would cause cellular breakdown in most species. Most species, Neil agreed. But look at these specific compounds. This one here is similar to capsaicin. What makes hot peppers hot on Earth? We eat that for fun. This one resembles oxalic acid, found in spinach and rhubarb. This one is structurally similar to compounds in cassava root. We've been eating all of these things for thousands of years. Hess leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the room. You're suggesting humans are immune to Verdant 9's toxins? Not immune, Amy clarified, pulling up medical data, but resistant. Our livers are designed to process a wide variety of toxic compounds. Our digestive systems can handle high levels of acids and alkaloids. We evolved eating plants that other animals avoided because of chemical defenses. Leo added his own data to the display. I've cross-referenced the planet's vegetation scans with Earth plants. At least 17 different species on Verdant 9 have chemical compositions similar to foods humans already eat. With basic preparation, they'd be safe for us. Basic preparation? Rala repeated. Cooking, soaking, fermentation, Leo explained. Methods we've used since we discovered fire. Hess exchanged looks with several other command staff members. You're proposing to drop onto a planet that would kill most species, eat the local vegetation, and keep the survey team alive until proper rescue arrives. Yes, Iris said simply. We can do it. You could die. We could, Iris acknowledged. But those researchers will definitely die if no one helps them. We're trained for hostile environment survival. This is what humans are good at. The debate that followed lasted 2 hours. Medical staff argued about risks. Scientists questioned the data. Safety officers raised concerns about liability. Through it all, the human team waited patiently, confident in their assessment. Finally, Hess made the decision. Prepare for emergency drop. You'll have basic survival gear and emergency beacons. If conditions prove more dangerous than anticipated, you abort immediately. Understood? Understood, Iris confirmed. 12 hours later, Rala stood in the launch bay watching the humans prepare. They packed light, basic tools, fire starters, water filtration equipment, and medical supplies. No food beyond emergency rations for the stranded survey team. You're really going to eat what you find down there? Bryn asked, his suit practically vibrating with anxiety. That's the plan, Neil said, checking his pack straps. We'll test everything first, obviously. Start with the species that show the closest chemical similarity to Earth plants. Cook what needs cooking. Process what needs processing. Rala approached Neil, her crystalline form refracting the bay lights into worried patterns. This is extremely dangerous. I know, Neil said, meeting her eyes. But those people down there are counting on us. And honestly, I've analyzed the data a dozen times. We can do this. Your confidence terrifies me, he smiled. That seems to be a running theme. The dropship was cramped and basic, designed for quick deployment rather than comfort. As the humans strapped in, Rala transmitted final data packages to their equipment. The survey team is aware you're coming, she told Iris through the comm system. I'm not sure whether that comforted them or increased their anxiety. Probably both, Iris replied. We have that effect on people. Launch was smooth, but Rala watched the trajectory with her internal sensors running constant probability calculations. Everything about this mission violated standard safety protocols. They were sending 4 humans to a planet that could kill them, to eat local vegetation that would be classified as hazardous waste on most worlds, to save researchers who were probably terrified of their rescuers. Hours passed. The dropship entered Verdant 9's atmosphere, sensors screaming warnings about toxic compounds in the air, water, and soil. The human team's biometric readings remained steady, though Rala noticed their heart rates elevated slightly. Anticipation, not fear. The dropship landed 3 kilometers from the stranded survey team's position. Through the video feed, Rala watched the humans emerge into a jungle that looked beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Purple and green vegetation stretched in every direction, flowers the size of small vehicles, trees with bark that glistened with what sensors identified as contact toxins. Atmosphere is breathable, Amy reported, checking her scanner. High oxygen content, some irritating particulates, but nothing immediately dangerous. Neil was already examining nearby plants. This one looks promising. See these leaves? Chemical structure is almost identical to taro root. We'd need to cook it thoroughly, but it should be safe. Leo knelt beside a cluster of bulbous fruits. These are interesting. High sugar content, but wrapped in a coating that contains paralytic compounds. If we can peel them carefully and wash the flesh, they might be edible. Rala listened to them discuss deadly plants like they were shopping at a market, her concern growing with each casual observation. The hike to the survey team's location took 4 hours. The humans stopped frequently to collect samples, testing and documenting as they went. They found water in a stream that sensors said contained dissolved metals and organic toxins. Leo showed them how to create a basic filtration system using sand, gravel, and charcoal they made from burning local wood. When they finally reached the damaged shuttle, 4 researchers emerged cautiously. Pip, a small feathered creature, was being supported by 2 others. Even from the video feed, Rala could see the infection spreading across Pip's wing membrane. "You actually came," one of the researchers breathed. A tall amphibious being named Kess. "Of course we came," Iris said. "Let's get you stabilized and fed. We have supplies." "And dinner," Neil added, holding up several wrapped bundles of vegetation. "Found some good stuff on the way here." The survey team stared at the plants with obvious horror. "You're going to eat local vegetation?" Kess asked weakly. "We already did," Leo said cheerfully. "That fruit with the purple skin is actually pretty good once you peel it. Tastes like slightly bitter mango." Pip made a sound like a squeaking hinge. "That fruit causes complete neuromuscular paralysis in every species we tested." "Yeah, the skin does," Neil agreed. "But the flesh inside is fine. You just have to be careful." Rala watched through the feed as the humans set up camp, built a fire using local wood, and began preparing their foraged meal. The survey team sat at a safe distance, looking like they were watching a slow-motion disaster. Amy approached Pip with her medical kit. "Let me look at that wound." "We're out of medical supplies," Pip said weakly. "I brought some from the station, but I also made a few things from local materials." Amy pulled out a paste she'd made from processed plant extracts. "This should work as an antiseptic." "You made medicine from the planet that's trying to kill us?" "The planet isn't trying to kill you," Amy said gently, applying the paste. "It's just being itself. You're the one not adapted to it." As night fell on Verdant 9, Rala watched the humans eat their foraged dinner while the survey team watched in horrified fascination. Neil bit into a roasted fruit, the same fruit that contained paralytic toxins in its skin. He chewed, swallowed, and smiled. "Not bad," he said. "Definitely going in my notes." Kess made a gurgling sound of disbelief. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Rala began to understand something fundamental about humanity. They didn't conquer hostile environments through superior technology or overwhelming force. They simply refused to acknowledge that anything was truly inedible. Dawn on Verdant 9 arrived with sounds that no one in the survey team had heard before: laughter and the crackling of a cooking fire. Kess emerged from the damaged shuttle to find the humans already awake, preparing what they called breakfast. "How did you sleep?" Iris asked, tending a flat stone they'd positioned over the flames. "Poorly," Kess admitted. "We kept expecting to hear screaming when the toxins took effect." "We're fine," Neil assured him, flipping something that looked disturbingly like the deadly ground cover they'd cataloged on day 2 of the survey. "Actually slept better than I have in weeks. The air here is really fresh once you get used to it." Leo was returning from the nearby stream, carrying containers of filtered water. "Morning, everyone. I found some new specimens upstream. There's a whole grove of these tuberous roots that look promising." Amy was changing the dressing on Pip's wound. The small researcher had been feverish and weak yesterday, but this morning showed remarkable improvement. The infection's angry purple color had faded to a light pink. "Your medicine worked," Pip said, voice filled with wonder. "I can feel my wing again." "Told you," Amy said with a smile. "Sometimes the solution to local problems is local resources. That plant grows everywhere around here for a reason. It's got strong antimicrobial properties. It's also highly toxic," one of the other researchers pointed out. A gelatinous being named Wex who occupied a portable containment sphere. "Toxicity and medicine are often the same thing in different doses," Amy explained. "We just needed the right concentration and application method." The first full day established a routine that would last the next 6. The humans would wake early, forage for food, test and prepare their findings, and maintain camp while the survey team watched with a mixture of awe and horror. Neil proved to be an enthusiastic experimenter. He tried everything, taking careful notes on taste, texture, and effects. Some plants needed extensive processing. Others could be eaten with minimal preparation. A few were genuinely too dangerous even for human consumption, which he determined by starting with tiny test amounts and waiting for reactions. "This one's a no," he announced on day 2, spitting out a small piece of golden berry. "Causes immediate numbness. Probably neurotoxic in larger amounts." "Probably," Kess repeated weakly. "Well, I'm not going to eat enough to find out for sure," Neil said reasonably. "But the tingling in my mouth is already fading, so it's not persistent." Good to know. Leo's discoveries proved more successful. He found the tuberous roots he'd mentioned, and after extensive boiling and multiple changes of water, they became soft and edible. Leaches out the bitter compounds, he explained, mashing them into a paste. Similar to how we prepare cassava on Earth. The roots are poisonous raw but perfectly safe cooked properly. By day 3, the humans had established a respectable menu. Roots, fruits, leafy vegetables that needed careful preparation, and even a type of fungus that grew on dead wood that tasted, according to Neil, like mushrooms with a peppery finish. You're eating decomposer organisms, Wex observed from his sphere. Mushrooms are decomposers on Earth too, Leo pointed out. They're delicious. This is basically the same thing, just local variety. The survey team began to relax slightly, though they still refused all offers of food. They survived on the emergency rations the humans had brought, carefully portioned to last. On day 4, the situation tested human adaptability in a new way. Rain came to Verdant 9, and it came hard. The drops sizzled when they hit exposed skin, not burning exactly but irritating. Sensors showed the water was slightly acidic and carried dissolved compounds from the vegetation. Everyone into the shelter, Iris ordered. They'd built a proper structure by then, using large leaves and flexible branches woven together. It kept the rain off surprisingly well, but the stream they'd been using for water swelled and changed color, running dark with runoff from the hills. That's not safe to drink anymore, Amy said after testing it. Too much sediment and concentrated compounds. What will you do for water? Pip asked nervously. Neil was already examining the rain collection system they'd set up using the humans' emergency thermal blankets. The rain itself isn't too bad. We can collect it, let it settle, filter it through charcoal, and boil it. Should be fine. Should be? Kes made his species equivalent of a worried sound. It'll be fine, Neil corrected with a grin. The rain lasted 18 hours. When it finally stopped, the jungle had transformed into an explosion of new growth. Flowers bloomed everywhere, releasing pollen that made the air shimmer with color. Beautiful, Leo breathed, then immediately started sneezing. Allergic reaction? Amy asked, concerned. No, just irritating, Leo managed between sneezes. The pollen is loaded with some kind of defensive compound. Give me a minute. He fashioned a mask from fabric and continued his work, documenting the new plant life that had emerged after the rain. That evening, as the humans prepared dinner over their fire, Kes finally asked the question that had been building for days. How are you doing this? Not just surviving, but thriving? You're eating things that would kill us, drinking water that burns skin, breathing air filled with irritants, and you seem happy about it. Iris looked up from the root vegetables she was roasting. Want the scientific answer or the philosophical one? Either, both. Scientifically, Amy said, humans evolved on a planet that was trying to kill us pretty much constantly. Predators, diseases, poisonous plants, extreme weather, food scarcity. We developed adaptable biology and creative problem solving because we had to. Our digestive systems can handle a wide pH range. Our livers process toxins efficiently. Our immune systems are aggressive, and our brains are wired to see food potential in almost anything organic. And philosophically? Wex asked. Neil spoke up, turning something that looked distressingly like a large insect over the fire. We don't give up easily. When you come from a world that's hostile, you learn that survival isn't about having perfect conditions. It's about adapting to whatever conditions you have. This planet isn't that different from parts of Earth, honestly. Different specific threats, but same basic principle. Understand the danger, learn the patterns, find the opportunities. That thing you're cooking, Pip said quietly, pointing at the insect. We documented it on day 1. It sprays defensive chemicals that cause severe burns. Yeah, the spray glands are in the head section, Neil agreed. You remove those first, along with the digestive tract. What's left is basically protein. Tastes a bit like shrimp. The survey team fell silent. Day 5 brought a new challenge when Leo developed a mild fever. Not from the food or environment, but from a small cut on his hand that had become infected despite Amy's careful attention. Native bacteria, Amy diagnosed, examining the wound. Your immune system is fighting it, but we need to help. She prepared a stronger dose of the antimicrobial paste she'd made for Pip, along with a tea brewed from bark that contained natural fever reducers. Leo drank it with only a slight grimace. Bitter, he commented. Quinine-like compounds, Amy explained. Should help with inflammation and fever. By evening, Leo's fever had broken. He was weak but recovering. You trusted medicine made from local plants, Kess observed. The same plants you've been warning us are toxic. Dosage and application, Amy repeated her earlier lesson. The bark I used for Leo's tea would make you violently ill because your biology can't process those specific compounds. But for humans, at the right concentration, it's effective medicine. Every species has different tolerances. Day 6 arrived with a sense of anticipation. The rescue ship would arrive soon, bringing proper supplies and transportation. The survey team was noticeably healthier than when the humans had arrived, thanks to Amy's medical care and the psychological comfort of not being alone. The humans, meanwhile, had gained weight despite surviving entirely on foraged food. You're actually healthier now than when you arrived, Pip observed, watching Neil organize samples they'd collected for further study. Good food, plenty of exercise, fresh air, Neil said. Honestly, this has been kind of a vacation. Stressful at times, sure, but interesting. A vacation, Kess repeated flatly, on a planet classified as a biohazard zone. Different perspectives, Iris said with a shrug. When the rescue ship finally appeared in the sky, landing in a cleared area nearby, the survey team rushed toward it with obvious relief. The human team followed more slowly, carrying their samples and equipment. The rescue crew emerged in full environmental suits, sensors sweeping the area for threats. Everyone okay? The rescue commander asked, voice filtered through suit speakers. The survey team is stable, Iris reported. Some injuries, but recovering. We're all fine. The commander's helmet turned toward the camp the humans had built. The fire still burning, food drying on racks, the shelter standing sturdy against the jungle backdrop. You survived 6 days eating local vegetation, and drinking local water, and using local medicine, Neil added helpfully. I've got about 40 species documented as safe for human consumption with proper preparation. Maybe 60 if we had more time to test. 60, the commander repeated. Verdant 9 is actually really biodiverse, Leo said enthusiastically. There's potential here for all kinds of research. Agricultural possibilities, pharmaceutical compounds, ecological studies. This place is amazing. The rescue commander looked at the survey team, who nodded weakly in confirmation. They ate everything, Kess said quietly. Things that would kill us in minutes. And they thrived. As the rescue ship lifted off hours later, the survey team sealed safely inside and the humans strapped into jump seats. Pip looked out the viewport at the receding jungle. Thank you, the small researcher said to Neil, for saving us, for not giving up. That's what we do, Neil replied simply. Humans are good at not giving up. Below them, Verdant 9 continued its existence, beautiful and deadly and completely indifferent to the beings who tried to survive there. But 4 humans had looked at that deadly paradise and seen dinner. And in doing so, they'd changed everything. News traveled fast in the galactic community, but understanding traveled slower. Rala watched the story of Verdant 9 spread through scientific networks, news feeds and casual conversations across hundreds of worlds, and she watched the reactions shift from disbelief to horror, to something she couldn't quite identify. The Celestial Archive became the center of attention almost overnight. Scientists arrived from across known space, all requesting time with the human delegation, access to their biological data, samples from their Verdant 9 expedition. The station's guest quarters filled to capacity. Rala found herself in the unusual position of defending the humans against researchers who wanted to treat them like laboratory specimens rather than colleagues. No, you cannot have tissue samples without consent, she told a persistent crystalline researcher from the outer reaches. And no, we will not be sedating them for invasive testing. They are scientists, not subjects. But the humans, to her surprise, were remarkably cooperative with the attention. They gave presentations, shared data, submitted to non-invasive scans, and answered endless questions with patience that seemed almost superhuman. Doesn't this bother you? Rala asked Neil after a particularly long session where 17 different species had examined his digestive tract scans like he was a fascinating puzzle. A little, he admitted, but I understand it. We're weird to you, really weird. If I met an alien species that could survive in environments that would kill me, I'd want to understand how too. The first major publication came 2 weeks after their return. Dr. Quill, the station physician, co-authored with Amy Torres a comprehensive analysis of human digestive capabilities. The paper included comparisons with 43 other species and detailed breakdowns of human stomach acid composition, liver function, and gut microbiome diversity. Rala attended the presentation in the station's main lecture hall. Every seat was filled with additional attendees joining via holographic link from across the galaxy. Amy stood at the podium, calm despite the hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other perceptive organs focused on her. What we've learned is that humans don't just tolerate a wide variety of foods. We actually require variety. Our evolution on Earth created a species that thrives on mere nutritional diversity rather than specialization. The presentation included footage from Verdant 9, watching Neil eat that paralytic fruit again, knowing what she knew now. Rala still felt her structure shiver with vicarious fear. The human liver, Quill added, his throat sac pulsing with academic excitement, processes toxins at a rate approximately 14 times faster than the galactic average. Combined with aggressive stomach acid and a gut microbiome that includes bacteria capable of breaking down compounds most species cannot metabolize, humans are effectively walking chemical processing plants. A researcher from the audience, a methane breather like Bryn, asked the question many were thinking. Are humans dangerous? Should we be concerned about biological contamination? Amy's response was measured. Humans carry bacteria that could theoretically harm some species, yes. But so does every other species here. The key is proper hygiene protocols and respect for different biological needs. We're not more dangerous than anyone else, just different. Rala stood after the session ended, making her way to the podium where Amy was fielding individual questions. She waited until the crowd thinned. I'm writing a paper, she told Amy, about human dietary evolution and its implications. I was hoping you'd review it before publication. Of course, Amy said. What's the focus? I'm calling humans apex omnivores, species that can survive and thrive in the widest possible range of environments because of dietary flexibility. Rala projected her draft abstract. I'm arguing that this represents a unique evolutionary path with significant implications for galactic exploration and colonization. Amy read through the abstract, nodding slowly. This is good, though I'd suggest changing unique to rare. Earth had other omnivorous species. We just happened to be the ones who developed technology. Fair correction. The paper, when published 3 weeks later, became one of the most downloaded scientific documents in recent galactic history. Rala's inbox flooded with responses. Some praised the analysis. Others argued with her conclusions. A few suggested she was overstating human capabilities. Then, someone tested her theories in the worst possible way. The merchant ship Prosperities venture had encountered engine failure near a previously uncharted system. The crew of 15 managed to reach the system's only habitable planet before their ship died completely. When their distress call finally reached civilized space, the response team found a nightmare scenario. The planet was toxic. Not Verdant 9 levels of toxic, but bad enough. The merchant crew, representing 7 different species, had been rationing emergency supplies for 11 days. They had maybe 2 days left. The fastest ship that could reach them would take 5 days. Commander Hess called an emergency meeting. Rala attended along with Iris and the human team. We have the same problem we had with Verdant 9, Hess stated bluntly. Beings who will die before conventional rescue can arrive, stranded on a planet that's hostile to their biology. But not to ours, Iris said quietly. The data suggests possibly not, Hess agreed. But this planet is different from Verdant 9. Different toxins, different ecology, different challenges. Neil was already reviewing planetary scans on his tablet. Heavy metal concentrations in the water, atmospheric irritants, plant life showing chemical defenses similar to several Earth species. It's dangerous but manageable. You're volunteering again, Rala said. It wasn't a question. Those people need help, Leo replied. And we can provide it. That's not really a choice, is it? The decision process was faster this time. The galactic community was watching, and the precedent from Verdant 9 carried weight. Within 6 hours, the human team was aboard a fast response ship, heading toward another deathworld that they claimed was survivable. Rala watched the news coverage obsessively. Reporters from a dozen species speculated about human chances. Some called them heroes. Others called them insane. A few suggested they were lying about their capabilities and would die proving it. The team landed successfully. Within hours, they'd made contact with the stranded merchant crew and began establishing a survival camp. Updates came regularly. Day 1. Humans successfully foraging and processing local vegetation. Day 2. Water filtration systems established. Day 3. One of the stranded crew members critically ill treated with human-processed local medicine. Day 4. Everyone stable and waiting for conventional rescue. When the rescue ship finally arrived, all 15 merchant crew members were alive and recovering. The human team was healthy, having once again survived on nothing but what they could find. The media explosion that followed dwarfed the Verdant 9 coverage. Humans could survive on toxic worlds. Not just once by luck, but repeatedly by design. They could eat what killed other species. They could turn poisonous environments into livable spaces through nothing but knowledge and determination. The implications rippled through galactic society like waves in still water. Governments contacted Earth's diplomatic corps. Corporations offered contracts. Research institutions proposed joint studies. And deep in the offices of galactic exploration committees, bureaucrats began pulling up survey data on thousands of planets previously marked as uninhabitable. Rala watched it all unfold from the archive, documenting everything for her ongoing research. She'd gained a reputation as the foremost expert on human biology, a position that felt absurd considering she'd only known humans existed for a few months. Bryn visited her lab one evening, his suit's speakers carrying a thoughtful tone she rarely heard from him. "I've been thinking about humans," he said, "about what they represent. And what do they represent?" "Options," Bryn said simply. "For thousands of years, we've explored space with limits. Planets that are too hot, too cold, too toxic, too hostile. We marked them uninhabitable and moved on. But to humans, uninhabitable just means challenging." Rala continued her work, adjusting crystal alignments in her experiment. "You're saying humans change the equation." "I'm saying humans change everything." Bryn moved closer to her workbench. "The galaxy just got bigger, Rala. All those worlds we dismissed, humans might thrive there. All those resources we couldn't access, humans might reach them. We're not just adding another species to our community. We're adding an entirely new category of possibility." That night, Rala completed her latest research paper. She titled it simply, "Humanity and the Expansion of Habitable Space: Implications for Galactic Development." The abstract began. "The introduction of humans to the galactic community represents a paradigm shift in our understanding of habitability. What we have classified as toxic, humans call challenging. What we label as uninhabitable, humans see as unexplored. This paper examines the biological, technological, and philosophical implications of a species for whom edible is a remarkably broad category." She submitted it just before dawn, station time. By afternoon, the galactic scientific community was reading it. By evening, everyone was talking about it. And somewhere in the darkness of space, aboard ships and stations scattered across hundreds of light years, beings from 1,000 different worlds looked at their star maps with new eyes. All those red zones marking dangerous planets, all those warnings about toxic environments, all those places they'd learned to avoid. Humans looked at those same maps and saw potential. It should have been comforting, this expansion of possible worlds. Instead, for most species, it remained terrifying. Because if humans could eat almost anything, survive almost anywhere, adapt to almost any challenge, what did that make them? Rala thought she knew the answer, but she kept it to herself. It made them survivors, and in a galaxy that had grown comfortable with safety and specialization, survivors were the most dangerous thing of all. 6 months had passed since the humans first arrived at the Celestial Archive, and the galaxy had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Rala stood in the observation deck, watching construction crews work on the archive's new wing. The workers were a mixed group, crystalline shimmers like herself, bulky silicon-based beings, methane breathers in their suits and scattered among them, humans. The humans worked without protective equipment beyond basic safety gear, breathing the same processed air, touching the same materials, eating lunch together at long tables where food had become a surprisingly complex negotiation. "Still getting used to the sight?" Iris asked, joining Rala at the window. The human captain had become a regular presence on the station, coordinating what had grown into a much larger operation than anyone initially anticipated. "I don't think I'll ever fully adjust," Rala admitted. "6 months ago, the idea of humans eating fermented food horrified me. Now I watch your people establish permanent bases on planets that would kill me in hours, and I'm simply documenting it for research." Below them, Neil was explaining something to a group of young researchers from various species, gesturing enthusiastically. Even from this distance, Rala could see the mixture of fascination and unease in the student's body language. "He's teaching the survival class again," Iris noted. "Third session this month. We have a waiting list of over 200 students." The class had started informally, Neil offering to share some basic Earth survival techniques with interested researchers. It had grown into a formal program that now included wilderness survival, emergency food identification, water purification methods, and basic toxicology. The fact that most of the techniques involved eating or drinking things that would traditionally be considered hazardous had not diminished enthusiasm. Quite the opposite. "Actually, I heard the Frontier Corps officially launched last week," Rala said. Iris nodded, pride evident in her expression. 20 ships, mixed crews heading out to survey Class H worlds. That's what we're calling them now. Planets that are hostile to most species but potentially habitable for humans. How many worlds are we talking about? Current estimates suggest around 12,000 cataloged planets qualify. Another 40,000 unexplored systems show promising readings. Iris pulled up a star map on her personal display. Red zones had been relabeled with a new designation. Yellow for human accessible, standard caution advised. The map looked completely different from the one Rala had studied as a young researcher. Safer somehow, more full of possibility. "We received a request from the mining consortium yesterday," Rala mentioned. "They want human consultants to assess several mineral-rich asteroids that have been deemed too toxic for standard operations." "Toxic how?" "Organic compounds in the rock matrices release gases during processing that cause severe respiratory damage in most species." "Let me guess. Similar to something humans already deal with? Similar to industrial solvents used in manufacturing on Earth, apparently." Rala's structure flickered with what might have been amusement. "Your species used to breed these compounds recreationally in poorly ventilated workshops." Iris laughed. "We weren't always smart about safety. But yeah, we've developed resistance to a lot of industrial chemicals over generations. If the pay is right, I'm sure we can find volunteers." Movement near the construction site caught their attention. Leo had arrived with several containers, distributing what looked like packaged food to the workers. Mixed crews meant mixed nutritional needs, but humans had proven remarkably adept at food preparation that accommodated everyone. "Is he still running that restaurant?" Rala asked. "The Frontier Kitchen. Twice a week, rotating menu, everything clearly labeled with species compatibility warnings." Iris's smile widened. "Last week he served something made from the Verdant 9 fungus. Sold out in 20 minutes. People are eating Verdant 9 products, processed, packaged, and certified safe by medical review boards, but yes, turns out that fungus makes an excellent protein supplement and the flavor is apparently quite good. Leo's working with agricultural specialists to cultivate it in controlled environments." Rala processed this information. Humans weren't just surviving on toxic worlds anymore. They were bringing those worlds' resources back to civilization, turning hazards into commodities. The observation deck doors opened and Bryn entered, his suit showing new modifications that allowed for better mobility in the station's mixed atmosphere. "Am I interrupting?" he asked. "Not at all," Rala assured him. "We were just discussing the changes." Bryn joined them at the window, watching the construction below. "I've been reviewing the colony proposals. There are 17 serious applications to establish permanent settlements on Class H worlds." 17. "And?" Iris prompted. "And they're all economically viable. These worlds have resources we couldn't access before. Rare minerals, unique biological compounds, strategic locations. The human presence doesn't just make these places survivable, it makes them valuable." "You sound concerned," Rala observed. "Not concerned exactly." Bryn's suit speakers carried a thoughtful tone, more contemplative. "We've spent millennia expanding through the galaxy in a certain way, finding suitable worlds, avoiding dangerous ones, building within our biological comfort zones. Humans arrive and suddenly the dangerous worlds become opportunities. It's forcing us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about space colonization." Below them, Neil had finished his teaching session. The students dispersed, several of them stopping to examine local plants that had been brought in for demonstration purposes. Plants that would have been labeled hazardous material 6 months ago were now teaching tools. Pip is doing well, Iris mentioned, changing the subject slightly. Last message I got, the medical team cleared them for full duty. The wound healed completely, Rala confirmed. Amy's treatment with Verdant 9 plant extracts proved more effective than conventional medicine for Pip's species. We're now conducting trials to see if it works for others. Human medicine derived from a toxic world, healing species that would die on that world if exposed directly. Bryn made a sound like escaping pressure. The irony is almost painful. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Rala accessed it through her internal systems and felt her structure brighten with surprise. The Galactic Exploration Council wants to establish a permanent human advisory position. They're asking for recommendations. Neil would be good, Iris said immediately. Or Leo, both if they can spare them. The position comes with significant authority. Approval rights on planetary classifications, input on safety protocols, consultation on emergency response procedures. Basically, they want humans to tell them what's actually dangerous versus what's just uncomfortable. Iris considered it. That's a lot of trust to place in a species you barely know. We know you better now, Rala said quietly. Well enough to understand that when you say something is survivable, you've usually already survived it. The construction crew broke for lunch. Rala watched as humans and aliens sat together at the makeshift tables, sharing food from multiple sources. She spotted one brave Shimmer researcher carefully trying a small piece of something from Neil's container, sensors probably monitoring every biological response. Remember when you screamed at Neil for eating algae cakes? Iris asked, clearly following Rala's gaze. I remember. Rala's structure flickered with embarrassment. I believe my exact words were, "That's not edible." And he just kept eating. He did. Rala turned from the window to face Iris directly. I've been thinking about that moment a lot lately, about what it represents. What does it represent? A fundamental difference in perspective. When most species encounter something unknown, we assess for danger first. When humans encounter something unknown, you assess for potential first. Danger is secondary. That's not always smart, Iris admitted. We've paid some heavy prices for that approach over our history. But it's also why you're here. Why you survived on worlds that should have killed you. Why you're changing how we think about the galaxy. Rala moved closer to the window again. I wrote in my latest paper that humans are apex omnivores. But I think I was understating it. You're not just omnivores. You're optimists, fundamentally. You see possibility where others see barriers. Down below, Neil was laughing at something, the sound carrying faintly through the observation deck's audio systems. Around him, researchers from a dozen species worked together on the expansion project that would house even more human specialists. More collaborative programs, more opportunities for species to learn from each other. We've received over 300 applications for the next human delegation, Rala continued. Research stations across the galaxy requesting human presence. Not for emergencies, just for regular operations. Your people have become valuable commodities. We're not commodities, Iris corrected gently. We're colleagues, partners. Of course. I apologize for the poor word choice. Rala paused, considering her next words carefully. What do humans want from all this? From joining our galactic community? Iris was quiet for a long moment, watching the workers below, the mixed crews, the collaboration happening in real time. The same thing anyone wants, I think. To be useful, to contribute, to explore and learn and build something meaningful, she smiled, and maybe to prove that being a little weird isn't a disadvantage. You've certainly proved that. Have we? Iris's expression turned more serious. Because I still see the way some species look at us. Like we're fascinating but dangerous, valuable but unpredictable, useful but unsettling. You are all of those things, Rala admitted. But you're also becoming essential. In 6 months, humans have gone from unknown newcomers to critical members of our community. That's extraordinary. A notification chimed on both their devices simultaneously. Rala opened it to find an official communication from the Galactic Council. They're voting on a proposal to reclassify habitable zone designations, she read aloud, adding a new category specifically for human-accessible worlds. They're calling it the Extended Habitable Zone. Politics, Iris said with a slight grimace. There will be debates about this for years. Probably. But the fact that they're considering it at all shows how much has changed. Down below, the lunch break ended. Workers returned to their tasks, the construction continuing under the light of distant stars visible through the station's transparent sections. The galaxy spun on, indifferent to the small beings building their futures on its surface, but those beings were building nonetheless. I should get back, Iris said. Meeting with the Frontier Corps leadership about the next wave of expeditions. More Class H worlds? Always more. The universe is bigger than we thought, and most of it turns out to be survivable if you're creative enough. Rala watched Iris leave, then turned back to the window. The construction site was just one small piece of a larger transformation happening across hundreds of worlds. Human settlements on toxic planets, mixed crews on exploration vessels, collaborative research in environments that would have been impossible to study before. And somewhere on a distant planet called Earth, more humans were preparing to join the galactic community, bringing with them their strange biology, their adaptable nature, and their complete refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Rala's communicator chimed with a message from Neil. Found something interesting in the station's waste recycling system. Might be edible. Want to help me test it? She felt her structure vibrate with what was becoming a familiar emotion around humans. Resignation mixed with curiosity, mixed with the kind of exasperated fondness usually reserved for particularly brilliant students who kept trying to lick the equipment. On my way, she transmitted back. But if you get sick, I'm documenting it for my next paper. Deal, came the cheerful response. Rala made her way toward the lower levels, where Neil was undoubtedly poking at something that would horrify safety inspectors and potentially revolutionize resource management. Because that was what humans did. They looked at what everyone else called waste and saw potential. They examined what everyone else labeled toxic and found nutrition. They approached what everyone else feared and discovered opportunity. And in doing so, they were rewriting the rules of what was possible. Rala descended into the station's depths, her research notes ready, her sensors calibrated, her expectations thoroughly adjusted to account for human unpredictability. Behind her, through the window, the galaxy continued its eternal rotation, full of hostile worlds and impossible challenges and countless opportunities for those strange enough, brave enough, and optimistic enough to see them. The humans were here now, and nothing would ever be inedible again.